Regarding your approach with the mnemonics, is your goal with new vocab to have recall from your native language into Japanese, or is it just to be able to remember them enough to understand when you listen back and review them? I found it fairly easy with Spanish to recall in both directions, but with Polish words and for me, alien pronunciation, Polish pronunciations, and spelling, very complicated. I only managed to recognize them, not translate from English to Polish. Also, how soon do you need to review words after memorizing them to make them stick? I generally do 10 words and then quick review to check the mnemonics have stuck. That then to check that the mnemonics have stuck with me before moving on. What I recommend is space repetition. Leave more time between reviewing the. So you should review a lot, but do not take if you've got 10,000 sentences or 10,000 words to learn. Do not focus on learning the first 100 and just review them over and over and over again, and then the next 100, and then the next one. No, go over the whole thing, the whole list. You'll forget a lot after the first, just going over the whole thing and memorizing the vocab and reading it once or listening to it once. But do it from start to finish, and then do the whole thing again from start to finish. Instead of if you've got 3 months to learn a bunch of sentences, let's say, as an example, instead of focusing the first week on a bunch of stuff and then the second week on a bunch of stuff, do the whole thing from the beginning and then go back. So do the whole thing for a week or two and then the whole thing again for a week or two and so on, instead of focusing on just one thing. Because if you learn something really intensively and review it over and over again, you'll remember it really well for a while. But then while you're focusing on something else, you'll end up forgetting the first stuff if you don't review it again. So reviewing everything, more content but less frequently, is more effective. Mostly because, well, first of all, if the mnemonics were good, you will remember a lot from from the very beginning. But also, a language is not you're not learning 10,000 items. If you're learning 10,000 sentences, you're not learning 10,000 items that are completely unrelated to each other. Language is a system, and there are lots of patterns that repeat themselves. A lot of grammar patterns. Keep seeing them, so you start recognizing them. A lot of vocabulary, especially the most common words, but other words as well. You keep seeing them, so even if you're not reviewing the exact same sentences, and you keep going on or going on the down the list, it's kind of a review still. So I recommend spacing your reviews as much as you can. I mean, not as much as you can. Like you review it once and then next year you review it again. But like if you've got, let's say you've got 100 language islands, language island being 10 to 20 sentences. So 100 units of 10 to 20 sentences, 1,000 to 2,000 sentences to learn. You go over the whole thing once, maybe once a week, twice a week, you read the whole thing and you listen to the whole thing as much as possible or from start to finish. Do not focus on one part only and neglect the rest. Eventually, with enough reviewing, you remember everything. As for mnemonics, with new vocab, it really depends. So with mnemonics, the goal is to make them stick enough so that then you recognize them when you hear them. Yeah. Retrieval practice is a different thing. Retrieval practice means remembering the information, actively trying to retrieve the information. Theoretically, just reading them once, seeing it, okay, this well means this thing, this sentence means this. Theoretically, by seeing it just once, the information is there. It's a different thing if you can retrieve it. You can actively retrieve it successfully or not. Maybe it's there, but often it's there. In fact, most of the time, it's You've seen it before, but you can't retrieve it. You don't remember it. It's easier to remember it if you see it and then to remember its meaning than the other way around. To get the meaning and try to come up with the way that that was said in the language. So, I mean, the more you do it, the better. The retrieval practice. It's a lot of hard work, and people try to avoid it. But if you listen to neurobiologists, people like Huberman, Carl Newport, these people, the real. If I was to like, if you want science, listen to those people, not the Kaufmans and the Krashens and those people. The social sciences is all bullshit anyway. The actual neuroscience people, listen to those. How do you learn something effectively? And one of the things is retrieval practice, spaced repetition and retrieval practice. And retrieval practice is very hard, but the more you do it, the better. And if you if the question is should I do it from Japanese into English or from English into Japanese, or target language into native language or native language into target language, the answer is probably both. There are two types of text here, two types of content: language islands and mass sentences. Mass sentences are the sentences that contain all the vocabulary and the grammar. So it's huge, a massive amount of language there. Basically, everything is there. Those you just need to be able to recognize them to understand the language. If you can't recall everything correctly, then you'll be phenomenal at speaking. So that'd be great as well. But in the beginning, if you just want to become conversational and then fluent as fast as possible and understand the language, those at first you only need them to understand. You need them to be able to understand the language. So then target language into native language, English or whatever your language is, then that's good. With your language islands, you have to be able to translate from your language into the target language because otherwise you can't come up with those sentences fast enough in conversation, right? So you should translate from your language into the target language. Personally, I do my language into, well, English, not my language, but English into target language directly with language islands, and with mass sentences, I do it both ways so that I also learn to recall the mass sentences as well, slowly. There's a lot of content there, so it's going to be slow. I spend a lot of time reviewing flashcards, but I do. There was some question as well. How many reviews per day? I do hundreds of reviews. 100 new flashcards per day that are shown to me. Although in later stages, I've got so many other previous flashcards for reviewing that I just don't have enough time to review everything. But I start with 100 and then I do like 500, sometimes 1,000 reviews per day in total. So the same flashcards over and over sometimes because when you're doing retrieval, you do mistake. You'll use the same flashcards over and over because you'll make mistakes. Maybe some part of the grammar was wrong, so you have to try to say the sentence again in a few minutes. And that's really good in order to speak correctly, to get rid of the mistakes you're making. So, yeah, summary: language islands retrieve, translating into the target language. Mass sentences, you can do it target into native language or both. And for pronunciation, just lots of shadowing. Hope that was helpful. Oh, and for reviewing, yeah, the more quantity you review per day, the better. Focus on reviewing more content per day instead of reviewing the same content over and over the same day. If you forget, it's fine. If you yeah, let's explain it like this the most simple way possible. 1,000 lines once a day is better than 100 lines 10 times today and then 100 more lines 10 times tomorrow and so on, because at the end of the week you will for sure have forgotten the 100 lines from Monday and from Tuesday, probably Wednesday as well, because you reviewed so much stuff since then, and the last time you reviewed them was like 5 or 6 days ago, so you probably forget them. But if you review the whole list of the 1,000 every day, just once, and then of course you can also listen to it to audio files. So it's much better. Right? More sentences and more content in general, but less often, but for longer, right? So that's the way I would do it.